Comic book splash pages is now on sale. 64 pages of gruesome splash page goodness is waiting for you in Splash of Horror. Links to purchase the book are in the description. Good afternoon, fiends and freaks. It's the Horror Mike Show on your Sunday nooner for your Sunday afternoon pleasure. And, well, you've just seen a couple of really cool trailers. You may have noticed one thing. It was all pretty much kind of G-rated stuff because of that terrifying Tubi massacre on Friday night. I figured I'd kind of, bring it back and get back to some classics. Tubi has added a lot of stuff in that realm. We're going to take a look at some of that stuff today. Before the Splash of Horror ad, which I'll get to in a second, we saw, of course, the classic 1964 Johnny Quest theme song, kind of quasi-trailer theme song, I like to call it. It's my favorite cut, really, as far as trailers go for Johnny Quest. But, and Popeye, that was Betty Boop back in 1934, presenting Popeye for the first time. And Popeye, there's a ton of Popeye on Tubi, going back into the 1930s. So you're going to be digging the heck out of that very soon as we take a look later on in the show during Tubi time, folks. That's what I'm talking about right now. And then we saw, before that, I think kicking that off was Max Fleischer's Superman, which is also a fantastic animated series, also on Tubi. Now, what kicked the whole thing off was Alice in Wonderland, but it was Lou Boonan's kind of quasi-live-action animated Alice in Wonderland from 1947. And it is stunning. The animation work in the film is amazing. It is now on Tubi. I highly recommend it. We're going to take a closer look at that as well. So it is shaping up to be a great Sunday. And of course, needless to say, as you all know, we will be joined soon by Fabrizio Aiello, the cartoonist artist responsible for Horace H. Hoover, which is about to see its third issue from Alterna Comics. We're going to take a close look at that and some other things that Fabrizio has been up to that you may not be aware of, okay? And I think you're going to want to check this out. It's quite good indeed. So without further ado, I'm going to cruise over to the chat and see what's going on there. Let's take a look. Easy Comic Reader is here. Hello, Easy Comic Reader. How are you doing, my good man? Good to see you. PBR Street Gang is here. That Cinderella stuff is way trippy, yes, especially when it's Alice in Wonderland. It gets a little trippier. But yeah, we're going to take a look at that soon. Good to see you, PBR. Steve Harrison is here. Fleischer rules, he does. Incredible animation in the Superman animated series from Fleischer. Steve says, Popeye and Betty Boop, the King Kong and Godzilla of the day. Well, that could be very well true. PBR saying howdy. Johnny Quest, of course, you got to love it. Scream Queen Stephanie Beaton is here. Hello, Stephanie. How are you doing, my good woman, on this fine Sunday? Steve says, as a boy, I was glued to the set for Johnny Quest. It is just some great stuff. It's great to see Tubi, doing the John. Just so many animated series on Tubi now, folks, and some live action stuff they've just added. You're going to, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't taken a close look at Tubi in the last week, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. They've been going nuts over there in Tubi land. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Gotham City Comics is here. Hello, Gotham City. How are you doing? Good afternoon to you, my fine Matt. Steve says early 1960s TV had local programming filled with the original Looney Tunes and Popeye cartoons every day at noon. Cartoon Party. Mike, are you ever going to create a Discord? Probably not. That's the short answer to that. Lead Paint, I'm here for my nooner. Hello, Lead Paint. Great to see you, my good Matt. Not sure why I typed Cinderella, but still very trippy. Yes, it is. Steve Harrison, hey, Gotham City Comics, thank you for that great tour of your store Friday. Wonderful place. Yeah, that is, wait until you see the clips, folks. I'm going to be putting together some tasty clips from that particular show, and you're going to dig the hell out of them. They will be, of course, this week, rolling them out this week, so make sure you check back to the Horror Mike channel. You are going to dig the shit out of it. Easy Comic Reader says, growing up with a handful of channels, we always wish there was more. Now we have it, and I'm drowning in choices. Yeah, and, you know, I don't know what to say about that. It's like, as far as selection goes, at this point, I am totally convinced that Tubi is it. As far as the diverse amount of stuff they offer, I don't see anybody else really coming that close to it. YouTube, maybe. That's about it. Easy Comic Reader, did I just, yes, okay, I saw that. Okay, folks, let me get to a little splash of horror here. Now, here's what's going on, right? There's a couple of things I want to bring to your attention. Of course, this is my book here, Splash of Horror. And so I've got, right now, I've got 5 copies left. Myself, signed copies, okay? And that's it. I'm not ordering any more to sign. That's going to be it. The good news is that Gotham City Comics also has at least 9 copies. I believe at this point, at least 9. If he's kept one of those for himself, don't know. But in any case, he has them for sale as well. I will be plugging his store next Friday because by that time I will be out. 5 will sell this week, no doubt about it. So it's going to be all Gotham City for the signed comics. And then sometime in the next week or two, IndiePlanet.com should have Splash of Horror for sale. They won't be signed copies, just your normal copies that you can buy there forever. That's pretty much it, you know. So that's how it's going with Splash of Horror. The reviews are coming in. They are freaking great. Thank you all, everybody that has commented. I've gotten, I think, 7 or 8 really great reviews on this book so far in the last week since people have started getting them. And that is fantastic. There's one thing I want to point out. At the end of the introduction that I have, okay, I talk about, it says, I hope you enjoy my humble tribute to the wild and weird splash pages of the pre-code horror comics era. Please send your thoughts and suggestions to splashofhorror@ghostclinic.com, as I will be adding a letters to the editor section in the next volume. And that volume is going to be coming up in June, folks. So people that have commented already have sent me comments via email or on my channel on the videos. They're fantastic. Thank you. Please also send some kind of commentary to splashofhorror@ghostclinic.com, because that would be freaking fantastic. I'm going to have an entire page at least of letters to the editor. which brings me to one more thing. Now, I keep saying letters to the editor because that's the generic term. And of course, I'm thinking like, okay, it would be something more like letters to the crypt. Something, of course, along the lines of Splash of Horror, it being a horror comic book. So I'm up for suggestions, my good fiends, people in the chat watching the show. I'm trying to be, I obviously something original. That's something that I really want to see. Like it, not just like, letters to the crypt keeper or whatever. It's got to be snappy, very short, like letters to the editor, but pertaining to pre-code horror comics. That's really what it's got to be. So that's what's going to happen. So beginning in June, with the June issue, volume 2, there will be a letters to the editor page. So I invite all of you who have seen the book, read the book, enjoy the book, and maybe even have some issues with the book. That's fine. To send your letters in, letters to the editor. And, it obviously helps. Maybe there's some stuff that you would like to see more of or less of. Input like that is invaluable for me. I, of course, value all of you guys, all of your input tremendously. And so that's the deal, folks. Splash of Horror at ghostclinic.com. That is the email, the official email for Splash of Horror. So there you go, right there. And I just want to bring it up real quick. Oops. Don't want to do that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so this is the eBay page, my good fiends. And so I started off with 5, I've sold 3 of them. There's 2 left on that. Those will not last, I guarantee you, because I've got 9 watchers on this already. Like in the last 2 days, 9 people have put it on their watch list. So those are going to go. I think I'll probably add a couple more. But as I said, I literally have 5 left. 5 issues, 5 copies, and that's it. So I'm trying to kind of jockey them between the eBay page and my own pages, horroranthologymovies.com and ghostclinic.com, to leave at least a couple available for that page. But yeah, sooner than later, the 5 will be gone. And I will be promoting Gotham City Comics, having those issues, as of next Friday. I'm sure of it. That'll be full bore Gotham City Comics, folks. Your source for the Splash of Horror. That's what I'm saying right there. Let me take a look there. There we go. That is just groovy. But I just wanted to point that out for you guys. And hopefully I'll see some more letters to the editor. That would be quite groovy indeed. Let me just cruise back one more time to the chat. Fabrizio is here with us, and I am going to bring him in a second. I just want to handle a few more comments in the chat. Easy Comic Breeder says, oh, yeah, okay, that's where I left off. Freebie is good. Yes, I agree, Lead Paint. As a matter of fact, Freebie's gotten some stuff that Tubi has not gotten yet. Brian Baugh is here. Hello, Brian Baugh. Just dropping in for a few minutes to say hi to you and Fabrizio. Horace H. Hoover rules. Wish I could stay for the whole show. My wife's out of town, so I'm locked into the single parent mode 24/7. We'll watch replay tonight after kids go to bed. Excellent, Brian. People saying their highs. Brian says, I got your book, Mike. Turned out amazing. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it, man. It would be so killer. Of course, everybody here. I know that Easy Comic Reader and Lead Paint have gotten their copies. It would be fantastic if you guys could. I mean, even just a couple of sentences about the book, to the letters to the editor, splash of horror at ghostclinic.com. I would be forever grateful. It'd be great. Then I would have the letters to the editor section. It'll be awesome, you guys. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that, my good man. Oh, okay. Did I not drop that link in the chat? If I didn't, then I just kind of, that was kind of a brain fart there, Stephanie. I could have sworn I did. But there, I just dropped it in the chat. That it's on eBay. It's also off of my site, horroranthologymovies.com. Yeah, so that's where it's happening there. Lead Paint says, I got my copy and it's well worth the price of admission. Thank you, Lead Paint. And I got your earlier commentary too, which I'm going to be quoting in my ads, my good man, because it's fantastic. Steve Harrison says, compared to the price of comics today, this is a 68-page steal. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. And indeed, yeah, $8.95 for it's 60. I think it's 64 pages, but still, it's quite the. It is. It's packed with pre-code horror goodness, folks. PBR Streaking. Hey, Horror Mike. Recently, you were showing some old school comics and advised us the first 5 issues were the issues that had Robert Bloch Lovecraft. You remember? Yes, that's Journey into Mystery. PBR Streaking. The first 5 issues. Number 1 starts off with Robert E. Howard. Issue number 4 has H.P. Lovecraft, an H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, and then of course Robert Bloch in the other issues. That's issues 1 through 5, and that, of course, I want to say 1972. I may be incorrect, but that's Journey into Mystery, the Marvel Comics series. Horace, Horrorspondence. That could be something. Letters to the Deader. I thought about that. It's good. It's good, Steve. Letters to, but I think somebody's used Letters to the Deader before. Nope, not on Amazon. Because they're a ripoff, Stephanie. That's why they take 30% of your money. That's why. Way better on eBay, where they only take 15%, and even better on my own website, horroranthologymovies.com, where through PayPal they take 3%. Okay, so that's horroranthologymovies.com, folks. I'm going to put that up here. Hopefully there we go. God, it's incredible on this editor. The pages are huge. Yeah, because the problem, Stephanie, is that on Amazon, I can't sell it for $8.95. I've got to sell it for like $10.95. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like the cover price is $8.95. It's horrifying. Ordering your book now. Thank you, PBR. Thank you, my good man. Jesus Christ, folks, I may have to do an emergency thing. Well, if it sells out, what the hell? I don't care. There's the eBay link, folks. This is so cool. Who did all your artwork? That's all pre-code horror comics, Stephanie. It's the pre-code horror era. Basically, from the way I see it, from 1948 to 1954, maybe the beginning of 1955. So those are all pre-code horror artists. Your wish is my command, Stephanie. There it is right there. That is the place to get it on my website. And once again, it's just, look, eBay's fine. They charge more, but the coverage is really great. I know Amazon, the coverage is great, but geez, man, they're taking almost 35 or 30%, nearly 30% they take. Ridiculous. Steve says, some took dead letter office time capsule. Nah, it's got to be horror. Gotham City. I think Amazon is worse on fees. They're twice as bad. Gotham City. They are literally about twice as bad for small sellers. First Man on Mars, whether you're left or right eye dominant, it's good for your peepers. Thank you, PBR Street K, for that plug. Just bought it. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Good Lord. Bought from the website. Thank you. That's quite great. Thank you very much. Why allow Big Bro to get higher interest? Yeah, that's exactly it, man. You know, it's like the platforms, we're going to get into that with Fabrizio. As a matter of fact, I'm bringing Fabrizio on with us right now, folks. He's been waiting patiently backstage. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you, if you have not seen him before or met him before, it is Fabrizio Aiello, the artist for Horace H. Hoover, and much more. Welcome, Fabrizio.
How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. It's great to see you. I'm glad to finally get you on, especially at this time when you have issue number 3 about to come out of Horace H. Hoover.
Yeah, it's exciting. Issue 3 definitely kind of, with each issue, you're going to get better, even if you're not trying.
Yeah, well.
So I felt this one really, the writing and the art, everything is sort of gelling. So
excellent. Let me do one thing. I'm going to, for a second, I just want to show people, because I've got the sacred comic book in hand. So I want to show people real quick. Folks, this is issue number 1 of Horace H. Hoover, and from Alterna Comics. That price is correct. $1.98, folks, for a comic book. Now, I think they've gone up to $2.25. It's still just an amazing deal. There's no doubt about it. It's look, in the first place, it's way better than most of the stuff you're going to find with DC and Marvel. I'm just saying that flat out is the truth. It is a fact. Check this out, okay? In the first place, there's a couple of things we're going to get to with Fabrizio, but I totally dig his style. The art is fantastic. I can't recommend this book enough. You can get these, and we're going to get to that very soon. You can get the first 2 issues on Alterna, and we're about to go to the page on Alterna where you can sign up to get the 3rd issue. Okay, so we're about to get to that in just a second. But I just a couple of things, Fabrizio, because I know that by reading your stuff, of course, I've been on your link tree. I've been looking at the stuff you have on Etsy, for example.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're a Lovecraft fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so am I. I don't know if you were aware of that, but I'm kind of a big Lovecraft fan. We, as a matter of fact, I've had several special episodes on Nothing But Weird Tales pulp magazine.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was growing up, I was trying to think of the first traditional horror book that I read, and it wasn't Lovecraft. It was actually Brian Lumley. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Brian Lumley, yeah. Didn't he do the Necroscope series?
Yeah. The Necroscope stuff, and I loved it. It's really great, vampire, supernatural stuff. And then I went back into his catalog, and he has a lot of Lovecraft influence stuff like Titus Crow and all this kind of stuff. And
Yes.
that's how I found Lovecraft. Because back then, you don't have YouTube, you don't, unless there's no way to make those connections unless it's organically from reading a book and seeing something on it. So that's how I got into Lovecraft. And then from there, it's, it seems like he's blown up over the past, I don't know how many years, but a long time ago, there were only special few of us that knew who he was.
Yes. Yeah. He really started coming back literally like in the late 1960s, early 1970s. And it had, of course, a lot to do with Arkham House. I think that they should be hailed as the people that really brought him back into the forefront. People started reading his stuff again. In the 1970s, he just took off like a rocket. It was hard to believe. Like we were just talking about Journey into Mystery. Of course, there's Chamber of Chills, which also has stuff by the early issues, I should say. Now, these are 1970s Marvel issues, Chamber of Chills, that feature adaptations of Robert E. Howard from Weird Tales. Harlan Ellison, believe it or not, and more Robert Bloch, a lot of various science fiction horror authors, and which is what they were getting into back in the early 70s. They knew, Stan Lee knew. Stan Lee was a Lovecraft fan. There's no doubt about that in my mind now, because seeing what he adapted for Journey into Mystery, for example, and Tower of Shadows, directly, which is something that kind of blew my mind, because with Tower of Shadows, with the first, I believe let's see, the first 5 or 6 issues, it was right in there. First 5 or 6 issues, they were adapting basically Weird Tales writers, including Lovecraft. They adapted The Terrible Old Man for issue number 3, I believe, and that was Barry Windsor Smith that did the art on that. Yeah, fantastic. And then I think it was issue number 8 that Bernie Wrightson adapted Pickman's model.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so really cool stuff. Stan Lee knew all, and Roy Thomas. They were both all over this stuff. And so when I was looking at your Etsy store, I, of course, saw a particular thing that you have on there that is absolutely fantastic. We're going to take a look at that. As a matter of fact, it's great that you have that link tree set up, because we're just going to go down the list.
Great.
I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I just want to say, as far as like Stan Lee, and Marvel adapting other writers, I think that's one of the most important differences between old writers and new writers. And some new writers will say they're just adapting other comic books. They're just taking old comic books and modifying it, as opposed to going from source material outside the genre, like old sci-fi or old horror. I think that's always the best route to go.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You're right. And another really welcome thing with Marvel in that time, that early 70s, when they were doing adaptations and, of course, reprinting a lot of their pre-code horror comics in the same, all of the, like Chamber of Chills and Vault of Evil and stuff, all of these have the pre-code horror comic reprints as well within the comics. So it's totally cool. And, but with Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard and Robert Bloch and so forth, all Weird Tales writers, they credited them right up front. And they also went to Arkham House to get permission to do the adaptations for Lovecraft. And it says right in Journey into Mystery, it's like, no, it's actually, they credit Lovecraft with the adaptations, but in Tower of Shadows, it actually says, adapted with permission from Arkham House.
I had no idea. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So they, not only were they were adapting these stories, but they had the respect to go and see if they could get permission, if there was an estate or whatever that still handled Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard and so forth, they would get the permission to do it. Now, I say this because in the 50s, EC Comics did not. They just blatantly ripped off writers like Lovecraft, what they would do is they'd take a story, they just change the name, they'd change the names of some of the characters and just rip it off, and they
Yeah.
didn't really give a damn, so it was like just to see what Marvel did in the early 70s. I think they're owed a tip of the hat, is
Yeah,
what I'm
definitely.
saying. God, it's like, if anything, if at the very least, if you've got writers like Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard that are long dead, and there's, as far as I know, they have no existing estates. So if you're not going to pay them, at least acknowledge where the material came from.
Yeah, for sure.
At the very least, and that's what they did. And I think that's a fantastic thing.
Yeah,
With that,
one of the
go
first,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, one of the first things I did whenever I'm like, well, maybe I'll switch from illustration and sculpting and kind of get into comics, but I wanted to get my feet wet. The first thing was like, well, maybe I'll just grab a public domain Lovecraft book and maybe do my, version of it.
Yes, I was. As a matter of fact, that was one of my questions to you, Fabrizio. Are you going to do an adaptation of Lovecraft?
I mean, I think I have to do at least The Picture in the House, which is probably my favorite story.
The
It's
Picture in the House.
A Picture in the House. It's very short. It's like 6 pages. Basically, an antiquarian on a bike. It's raining. He's in Massachusetts. He pops into this house for shelter.
Yeah.
And there's a book on the table. It's an old book about cannibals. And there's a guy upstairs. He comes down. It's not supernatural or anything. It's basically about a guy reading a cannibal book, and then a drop of blood hits the page, and then it's the end of the story. But it was short. It was confined to like one location, so I thought it'd be a perfect just way to get my feet wet into narrative storytelling.
I think you've just mentioned a Lovecraft story that I have not read.
So
I
good.
need to go back to I've got one volume that supposedly is the complete Lovecraft, but I guess I just glossed over it. I don't know why, and that would be a great one, Fabrizio, because nobody's done it. I
Yeah.
swear, nobody's adapted it. I've never
Yeah.
seen it in film adapted.
I
No.
haven't. Yeah, it struck me when I read it. It was short, and the atmosphere was so perfect, and it didn't have any sort of the typical Lovecraft monsters, which I think that's probably why people like. Well, it's just almost like a regular, quote unquote, regular horror story. It's not weird fiction, really. It's tangentially related to his stuff, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and of course he did stuff. He did do some really great stories that had nothing to do with the mythos, just straight ahead, like supernatural stuff,
Yeah.
such as The Hound, for example, or God, there were several there. I love them too. They're really great. Like, it's supernatural, just like non-mythos stuff. I really
Hmm.
dig a lot. But yeah, we're gonna get to the thing that you did, which is absolutely fantastic, and I want to talk more about that because it's pretty damn cool. I was amazed when I
Thank you.
saw it.
Thank you.
Uh, Wait until you see this, folks. You are going to dig the heck out of it. But before we let's address Horace H. Hoover, because that, I think a lot of people are here for that. First and foremost, it is new. Well, issue 3 is new on Alternate Comics as a forthcoming comic book. So I'm going to go over there. Let me see if I can. I know I got that page here. Here we go. Yep. All right. I'm going to bring the page up now. There we go. Folks, this is the campaign, the funding page. I'm going to drop the link into the chat right now so you can take a closer look. And there it is. There's the link, folks. And the one thing that you'll notice is that the price is $2.25. That's what the price will be for this comic book. It is full color, folks, and it's great. I just showed you issue number 1. Absolutely fantastic. It's just
Thank you.
the thing about Alterna is that they have some really good artists, including you. And you look at the price and you're like, oh my God, this is like, you're killing it. And so much better than I just keep seeing these abominations. I don't want to get down on Marvel and DC too much.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a second, I really do. But they're just it's like, what? People are paying $5, $6, $7 for a comic book. I mean, like of that caliber, which is just you seen it? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that was part of one of the things I always would do. Like once a week, I still go to my local comic book shop, even though I walk right by all the new stuff, right? And I just go to the old boxes. But
yes,
I would still kind of scan, and every time I'm like, it's just a blur to me. Nothing pops out. Nothing looks interesting. And then of course, like you said, on top of that, it's the price. So not only does it not look good, but the price is so high. I'm like, that's an investment just to be invariably disappointed into whatever and buying it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, if they're doing that, I think I can do a comic book that has a little more eye-catching. I think my artwork's a little different. My writing is a bit different. So I figured, why not?
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And not only that's something. The artwork is really great. The colors are fantastic as well. The story is really great. The character is really cool. And that brings me to Horace H. Hoover himself. If you could describe the genesis of Horace H. Hoover, how did you come about doing this really odd character that is so compelling at the same time? He's like, when I first saw him, I was like, what? I was like laughing. Then I was like, wait a second, and then I of course got the first issue, and I was like, man, this is really good. Horace Hoover is a great character. And I just thought, where did he come up with this idea? Oh.
Yeah. So I before I was kind of jumping into comic books, I was doing these very large, I'll call them caricatures, in graphite or charcoal. So I had done a circle. So you start with big shapes whenever I'm drawing. So, I did a circle and I had done other shapes, and I'm like, I need to do a new one. So I sit down and I kind of do a rectangle as just like the start shape of a head, like a caricatured head. And I put the ear really high up, and then I'm like, that almost looks like a vacuum cleaner. So then I kind of draw in the hose, I put the other wheel, and then he's wearing a suit, and I'm like, it made me chuckle, basically. I'm like, that's kind of funny. And then I set it aside. But I found myself, every time I sat down to draw or sketch or do anything, I started to draw the character. And I drew him in this pose where he's like, his back is arched and his hands are on his hips. And that, like, just with that pose, it really kind of gave me a sense of the character outside of, the design. And then it just kind of grew. I kept on getting these scenes in my head, and I'd sketch them out. I'd just do gestures, and I'd kind of throw them on the wall. I'm like, oh, maybe someday I'll do something with this. Because at this time, I'm doing illustration, and I haven't done really any comic books to any, significant degree. So the idea of me jumping into a new comic book, it just seemed way over my head. Anyway, I kept on cobbling together all of these scenes over and over, and I'm like, well, I'll do a 3D sculpture, and maybe that'll satisfy that itch in my head,
Yes.
So I spend time doing a 3D sculpture, like a 16-inch, maquette. But the first thing people would say to me is like, wow, that's really cool. What's his name? What are his powers? What's his backstory? Everybody wanted to know about the character. So I said, yeah, the only way I can sort of bring him to life, real life, is to do a comic book. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna head down. I'm gonna switch gears. I'm gonna go 100% into comic books. And for me, I mean, I grew up in the 80s, late 70s, 80s. So comic books, this is the look of comic books for me. Some people use the 80s as like a kind of gimmick, but they weren't born and they weren't
Yeah.
around in the
Right.
80s.
Right.
But this is what comic books look like to me. So the idea of doing anything else really didn't fit. So that's kind of how I ended up with this.
Okay. Okay. That's totally cool. It worked out really well. And you can see, like, just in issue number one, there, just getting back quickly to the Lovecraftian influence, there is a bit, folks. There's, as far as I'm concerned,
Yes.
I saw it kind of, it works itself into the story in a very good way.
Awesome.
Let's put it that way. I just dig the heck out of it. I'm going to go back. Let's remove this for a second. I'm going to go once again. You guys have to check this out. Now this is just, I'm a splash page nut. By now you guys all know it. Check out this splash page for Smoke Man Rises. I mean, folks, that's the type of page that grabs you and makes you want to read more. That's what it is. That's what the splash page is meant for. And, if it doesn't grab you, you got to go back and redo it. This is a fantastic example of
Thank you.
a splash page that really gets you into the story. And for me, it's got all the elements there. It's definitely the horror element with the gnarly hand on the book. It's great. To me, it's a little reminiscent, believe it or not, of there was a really great artist, golden age artist, well into the pre-code, I think into the 1960s and 70s, even Bernard Bailey, who he's one of his great claims to fame is he co-created the Spectre for DC in 1939, and he did some of the greatest pre-code horror comic book covers of the 1950s, in my opinion. Fantastic covers for weird mysteries. And he would do stuff like this, where you'd have characters and they're confronted by something that's really horrifying. Like just in this kind of, I don't know, how would you say, like just a setup like this type of thing, and it always sucked you into the story. That was the thing, so issue number one, folks. Right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to, let me get out of solo, and then I'm going to bring up the page here. So you guys I dropped the link in the chat, guys, for pre-order on Horace H. Hoover number 3. And what I'm going to do now is go back to Linktree. And we are going to take a look at, once again, this is Alternate Comics. And these are the first 2 issues, folks, right here on Alterna. And for example, I'm going to go, well, you can scroll down and see for yourself here. Let me drop this link in the chat as well.
Yeah, I decided that, if I'm going to do one comic, I'm going to put everything that I've ever kind of liked into the comic. So that's why it has all of the elements that I've always loved, either reading about or movies or other books. So it's kind of a mishmash of a few genres. You have a little bit of Lovecraft, like you said. To me, there's a little bit of Douglas Adams in there. There's a little bit of pulpy, sort of classic Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon kind of stuff. So
yes, yeah, it's got various elements to it, which is fantastic. And like, for example, you've got a nemesis in issue 2, Beware the Book Bug, which is freaking great, man. It ties the whole thing, the literature thing, books. and so forth. It's just a great idea for a villain,
Thank you.
right? You know,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. And check it out, folks. You scroll down a little further, and they're $1.98. Both of these issues, okay? And the great thing about Alterna too is that it gives you, for example, near mint, which is going to be $1.98, fine, which is $1.48. Now, sometimes the reader copies don't exist. In this case, they don't, but so you can get your near mint copy for, you know, the cover price, or a fine copy, which I've done through Alternative before. I bought, you know, fine, as it says, some creases. Typically, yeah, there's maybe a couple, you know, they're still in great shape for $1.48. That's all I'm saying. It's a great option that Alterna gives you. I mean, if $1.98 wasn't cheap enough,
Yeah.
you know, you check it out. Sometimes they have, like, you know, fine condition copies, and it's just great. That is another thing I love. Of course, I love, as I'm sure you totally dig the hell out of it, the fact that the interior paper, the paper itself, is like quasi newsprint.
Yeah.
That's how I would label this. It's as close as you can get that I've seen to the classic newsprint that was, you know, that's how we grew up reading our comic books, man. In the
Yeah.
70s and 80s. I
Yeah.
mean, it was only sometime in the 90s, correct me if I'm wrong, where things, I think, started going downhill.
That's where I definitely, the line for me started was the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, actually, when I was looking for a publisher, I said, I don't know, you know, should I self-publish? Should I go with a publisher? The newsprint, or like you said, quasi newsprint, because it's not exactly, but it's close.
It's close. Yeah.
Yeah. When I heard that Alterna did newsprint, I'm like, that's again the picture in my head of what a comic is like. So, and it goes well with the subject matter too. So, because for me, Horace H. Hoover and the subject matter and the material that it's printed on, you know, why
Yeah,
not
it's
have
great.
them mesh? Yeah.
Yeah, and folks, it's like, yes, it's as we're saying, it's quasi newsprint, but I've shown you some of the splash pages. The quality is totally there. You don't lose anything. In
Yeah.
other words, it's just really well done. I would definitely say high quality. Obviously, the material is, once again, I'm just going to say it's better than what they typically offer in Marvel or DC. And I would say that now, you know, we've talked about this before on the show. This is the time of the indie comic book publishers and creators. There is no doubt about that, because people are simply fed up with the big two, you know, and Alterna has been there at the forefront. I
Yeah,
think
and
they're
I
one of the
think
great.
ultimately it's just getting books in front of people. I think you're right. People are just fed up. And for me, I'll use myself as just a typical comic book fan. Been reading and collecting since I was very, very young. Still went to my local comic book shop, but I wasn't on Twitter, so I didn't have any avenue to really find new stuff. You know, we do have a really big comic book shop, and they would have a little more indie, but it wasn't until I got on Twitter and YouTube to really see the amount of indie creators out there putting out great stuff.
Yes, yeah, and well, Brian Bow, you know Brian
Yeah,
Bow.
yeah,
With this Wolf and Batsy, he's doing it. Well, he's gone. You know, he's doing it himself now. He was with Alterna. I think he put out, God, 9 issues through Alterna,
yes,
something like
yeah,
that. And the quality was great. Loved it. You know, and people in the chat, they know, they've, you know, also have bought Wolf and Batsy and other Alterna lines. You know, I've got stuff beyond your stuff, Horace H. Hoover, Wolf and Batsy. I've got it came out on a Wednesday,
mm-hmm,
which I think is their anthology stuff,
yeah,
which is really cool. And of course, Pete Cimetti did that really fabulous 4-part The Chair at the very beginning. That was
Yeah,
when
yeah.
Alterna was. I think that was kind of towards the beginning of Alterna comics, and I that was the first thing I ever got, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And of course, it was so good they made it. Somebody made it into a film. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I never saw the film, but like you said, this is the time for sort of indie creators and indie publishers. You know, there's lots of avenues. However you want to get your book out, whether it's single issues or collected, lots of avenues, and the quality is great. So
it is. It is. It's great with Alterna. Yes, they maintain a quality level. I think there are other indie publishers that do the exact same thing. You know what I did? The first thing I've ever done in the comic book realm is this Splash of Horror, this book on pre-code horror comics, and that's through Kablam.
okay,
Those guys are awesome. Oh my God, Kablam just kicks royal butt. Now they are uh, more expensive. There's, you know, there it's just that's kind of the way it is. I couldn't believe it when I got back the book, the like test copy, if you
hmm
will. I was totally amazed, and I realized that Kablam, you know, because they do a lot of stuff. They do like Big Bang Comics. I don't know if you've ever heard of those guys.
Mm-mm.
Uh, it it goes way back, Fabrizio. It goes way the hell back into the early 1960s with Big Bang Comics and characters like Doctor Weird. Doctor Weird, my good man, is still being published in Big Bang Comics by Kablam. Oh, well, it's Indie Planet is their outlet, right? So
Okay,
Kablam does the printing. Indie Planet. You go to the website, you can buy all of these. Absolutely, it's stunning the amount of indie comic makers. And Doctor Weird was this character that this guy created in supposedly in the 1940s. He was very much influenced by classic golden age characters like the Spectre and stuff like that. And so he created this character, Dr. Weird, but it only appeared for the first time. I want to say it was 1963 um, in a fanzine that was put out by Buddy Saunders, who runs Lone Star Comics or mycomicshop.com.
okay.
And it was called Star-Studded Comics. That was the fanzine. And so they had artists that would do, comic strips within the fanzine itself, and Dr. Weird was one of them. And then in 1970, this may just blow your mind. I've got the issues. They're not easy to come by. But in 1970, Jim Starlin, artist Jim Starlin, did his first comic books. They were Dr. Weird, and there were two comics that came out, two comic books, and one of them, I want to say it was the second issue. It was entirely written by George R.R. Martin.
What?
So yes, so you have Jim Starlin art and George R.R. Martin's story for Dr. Weird,
Wow.
and it is totally cool. So I guess it just getting back to the indie things, the great thing about Big Bang is that they have continued with Dr. Weird. Dr. Weird just other artists started doing Dr. Weird, and so he's continued along as this indie comic character that has had decades. Obviously, has lasted decades within the indie comic community. So
Wow.
it's awesome, and I love the old fanzines going back like to the 1960s and 70s, where they would just have they would spotlight artists you never heard of, maybe you never heard of again. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
they would take chances. In other words, people would, they would be like, hey, here's some stuff I've done. And they would print them, do a splash page or something within one of these comic book fanzines. Fantastic stuff. So Now, I think, the indie comics thing has really hit on a big level. In the 80s, it did hit as well, with Pacific Comics and Eclipse and all of those guys, Blackthorn. It was a really great period of time as well for indie comics and Rocketeer, all the Dave Stevens stuff. And
Yep.
God, just so much was going on, and Bernie Wrightson all over the place with the indies.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't have to sell 20,000 copies. You don't have to, and that's why, like you said, you don't have to be safe. You can take chances, do something different, and you don't have to sell so many copies to make it worthwhile, either for yourself as a side thing. Maybe it turns into a full-time job. Great. But at minimum, you get a book out there, you get the character out there, so people see the character and start to know them, and hopefully it grows into something more. Or like you said, or just it lasts for decades, which is every creator's just dream.
Yes, precisely. Yeah, such as with the Jim Starlin, George R. R. Martin, Dr. Weird. They made like somewhere between 300 to 500 copies.
Wow.
That was it. That
Yeah.
was all they did. And so of course it's rare today. They're not easy to find. They're fantastic, but they were reprinted, Fabrizio. If you are interested, they came out. Big Bang Comics did a not too long ago, I want to say within the last 20 years, they did an edition that has all the Martin stuff and the first comic book of Dr. Weird. You can get it on eBay for like $10.
I will absolutely get that. That sounds like something I would love.
Oh, it's really quite cool. And I think Alterna, just getting back to the indie thing, they've really done a fine job carrying on the indie tradition of comic books, and one of the few at this price point. You know what I'm saying? Like, who else is really doing it? You don't see it.
I would say it's the price of a cup of coffee. People always say, but it's not even that.
It isn't. I mean, you can barely walk into a Starbucks for $2. It would kick you out.
Yeah, you're not going to be feeding a starving family for $2. So
no.
Yeah, there's bundles on the website. If you want.
Yes.
Yeah. So highly recommend it. I love a lot of different titles. So. Check out issue 3. And the one thing I do with the mini series is there's some short stories, there's a longer arc, and then issue 5 is going to be a one-off. So you kind of get every storytelling type, we'll say.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I know some people like the episodic one-offs, some people like short, and some people like longer. So I figured I would kind of have a variety for the 5-issue miniseries, and then after that we'll kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I gotcha. Let me go back. Yeah, just want to go back and let's see. That is correct. Okay. Yeah, this is it. Let's do this one more time. Now that we're talking about it and everything, as far as the this new issue. I just want to make sure that people have at least bookmarked this page. If you haven't already signed up, folks, I'm dropping the link once again into the chat. You're going to dig it. You're going to love it. And I highly recommend that you pick up the first 2 issues. This is a 4-issue series.
5.
So it's 4 issues, but then there's the standalone.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yep.
Right. Exactly. So it's important that you get the first 2 issues. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that's the deal with Horace H. Hoover. You're gonna dig it. That's just you people in the chat by now know the type of stuff I like, and it ranges obviously from extreme horror to classic horror to like just the weird tale type of thing. And I think Horace Hoover falls into that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it does, as far as weird fiction to some degree. There's a couple of stories. I was talking about this last night. there's an old story called the Minister's Black Veil and the Repair of Reputations by Robert Chambers.
Yes.
And
Yes.
those are stories I think about with Horace, and some people might not see the connection, but there's certain elements that in my head I can always tie it to. I'm like, okay, there is just an aspect of it that you can definitely put in the category of weird fiction. But I also, since Horace is like a positive, like optimistic character,
Repair of Reputations isn't exactly positive.
Exactly. There's like an adventure aspect to it. So it's the trappings and sort of the not superficial, but the atmospheric stuff of those stories with, this Horace character kind of put in the center of it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that is so funny. The King in Yellow. It's a kind of an odd book because only about half of the book really has to do with the supernatural weird elements. You know what I'm saying? And then it kind of trails off.
It does.
It does. But those stories that have to do with the supernatural elements and the weird elements like Repair of Reputations and The King in Yellow and so forth are so good. Yeah. I mean, obviously Lovecraft was he loved those stories. He couldn't talk enough about them. And Robert Chambers. And it is something that I don't know if anybody's done an illustrated, like a comic book based or a graphic novel based upon The King in Yellow. I'm not really sure. I haven't seen one if somebody has done it.
I don't think I have. Yeah.
But it would be one hell of a thing. I'm telling you, because Repair of Reputations, for example, folks, I mean, it was popularized by True Detective. Have you ever seen that? Okay, yeah. Right. And it was a really good series, but I was so disappointed that they never actually got into anything that was about the King in Yellow, right? It was just it was a plot device.
Yeah.
That's really what it
exactly.
was, and so that was the scope of True Detective. But an very interesting thing about Repair of Reputations is that, he's talking about alternative futures, right? And I believe that in Repair of Reputations, it's the 1920s or thereabouts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's writing this like in 1895.
Yep.
And he's talking about how government funded public suicide chambers have popped up all over the place, and people, like, he describes the scenes where people, like, at night somebody's walking down the street and he just sees this guy run into a suicide chamber.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever watched Futurama, but in the first episode of Futurama, they have suicide booths, and I'm like, I don't know if he got it from that or not, but man, what a direct parallel to freaking 1890 and 1990.
Right, exactly. And actually, what's going on right now?
Exactly.
I mean, that is the strangest. The relevance of Robert Chambers and The King in Yellow it's hard to understate that. I mean, especially what's going on now, seeing it with our own eyes. That's a trip. So you've got this type of thing, and obviously, you if you went into the dark side of Repair of Reputations or King in Yellow, it wouldn't work for Horace Hoover. You know what I'm saying? It would just be too. It's something where somebody would take those stories and it would just be a really dark graphic novel.
Yeah.
That's it.
I always joke that one of these days, if I have time, I want to take whether or not it's The King in Yellow or Shadow over Innsmouth or something, and take the story word for word, character for character, but just replace the main character with Horace Hoover. And and I feel like that would be so fun. Everything else is exactly the same.
I just imagined him as the main character in Shadow over Innsmouth. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I feel like that would be so fun.
God, you could do it for an issue. That would be a
Yeah.
standalone issue, right?
Yeah.
Just, condense it because I forget how long Shadow over Innsmouth is like. It's a novella, right? It's up there. It's 50 pages or 70 pages.
It's not that long. I thought it was doable at least.
Right. Oh, it could totally be a one-off.
Yeah.
With Horace Hoover as that character, and he goes into Innsmouth. Oh, I could just see him now. He's on the bus.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Stays at the hotel. Yeah.
That would be hilarious. Well, that's something to consider. That would be. I think people would dig the hell out of it. That would be quite nice indeed. Okay, let's go back to the link tree because there's just other great stuff. Now, this is something rather important, my good fiends. We need, if you haven't already. Uh-oh.
Oh yeah.
Oh great. Holy shit. Okay, we're gonna watch this. This is fantastic. Let me get this. How is that? Oh, that looks good.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's watch this. This is the Horace H. Hoover trailer, folks. New York City, 1928. That is so good, Fabrizio.
Thank you.
I've never seen that trailer.
Oh.
I can't even freaking believe it. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to do this right now and even subscribe to your channel. I can't even believe it. That is freaking awesome. When did you, okay, it says 7 months ago, so you did it last year. This 2023 video. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah, doing those animated trailers is a little tough for me. It's been a while since I did motion graphic type stuff.
Yeah.
But I knew that I needed a trailer that would at least get people interested, kind of get people prepared for the comic. And I think the music and some of the copy kind of lends itself to that. So
that is freaking great, folks. There it is. That is the link I just dropped in the chat to Fabrizio's YouTube channel. Go on over and check out the videos, and of course, subscribe. My good fiend, you're gonna dig the heck out of that trailer. You just knocked it out of the park. If people watch that trailer and aren't interested, they're dead. They're just dead. That's all there is to it.
They're dead inside.
Yeah, that is astounding. Absolutely astounding stuff. Okay, let's get back to the link tree. Glad I went to the YouTube channel, man. That was definitely
Yeah, I do a lot of live streams where I'm inking and drawing, and I do some occasionally sort of my ideas on writing and art. Some people call them tips, but just things that I've noticed over the past couple of years doing comics.
Now here we go. Here is your Etsy page. Now, this is where the Horace Hoover resin model kit will be on sale, right?
Yeah, I'll put it on here.
Okay. When do you suspect that might be going up there?
Probably next week. I ordered packaging and things like that this week, so I should get that next week and be able to ship them out.
Oh, very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Folks, I just dropped his Etsy
Thank
into
you.
the chat right there. Okay, so this is the thing that when I was taking a look at this, obviously, and I, immediately I was like, well, it makes total sense with Horace H. Hoover and some Lovecraftian elements that kind of float through that. But check this out. There we go. Dagon, folks. The H.P. Lovecraft Dagon resin model kit.
Did did that pop up a new window?
Oh, shit, it did. You're absolutely right. I'm going to have to put this in the... Put it over here. There we go.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'm going to bring that up to... I think I can... Yeah, much better. No, it's not doing it. Why is it? It's kind of odd. Okay, hold on. So it just pops up yet another window. All right, I'm going to do this then. I'm going to see if I can. Because you guys just have to see copy image address. There we go. This close up. There we go. I think that's it, right? Should be there. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to do this. And I will read. I think that is it. It is. Okay, there we go. So when did you do this model kit? And I mean, it's incredible. In the first place, it's very detailed. Obviously, it's kind of complex, in my opinion, for a resin model kit.
It is.
You got a lot of stuff going. How long did it take you to sculpt it?
Yeah, so I did this. I might be wrong. It's been quite some time. It was before COVID, because basically, just to kind of back up a little bit, before COVID, I was doing resin model kits and sculpting primarily outside of my day job, and I was actually going to start a company doing these. So I have inventory. I have stacks and stacks of these resin model kits. So whenever that happened, conventions got canceled. And once the conventions got canceled, all this stuff went into my storage units. And I'm like, well, I need to do something in the meantime. And that's when I really dug into Horace H. Hoover. So I have a lot of these. As far as sculpting, this took me a while. This probably took me several weeks to sculpt. And it is very complex. So if someone out there does resin kits, hopefully they've been doing them for a while, because there's a lot of little pieces. But the company that actually assembles the final kit, they do an incredible job. Everything fits perfectly. It's packaged incredibly. Yeah. So this was fun. This was a trip to do, though.
Yeah. Now this is the unpainted.
Yep.
Right here. Check that out, folks. I mean, he's got the whole thing is nailed. Even the I don't know, you call it the obelisk.
Yeah.
Structure. The detail on it is just fantastic. That is just one hell of a thing. So it is currently available on Etsy and also Horace H. Hoover, probably by the end of next week, you think?
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
Okay. That is freaking fantastic.
It's one of those funny things where I have read Dagon countless times, but until you're trying to make a sculpture based on it, there are a lot of details and things you're not thinking of. So I reread it, and I'm like, I'm sculpting, and then I reread it again, and it was just little things make all the difference. I put as much of the story as I could into this, every little detail that was in there.
It is just, it's great, man. It is really great.
Thank you.
Let me take a look and see. I know I got that. We'll go back to here. Yeah, it's a great shot right there.
Yeah, we have a boat. We have like a rotting shark. We have...
That's so great. Here, let's see if I can. I'm just going to see if I can bring this up. There we go. That's as good as it gets. but it's pretty good.
Thank you.
Check that out, man. You got the little boat down there. I mean, it's so how much experience? Obviously, you have what I would just judging from this, a lot of experience as a sculptor.
Yeah. So I went to school for art, but it was for drawing. And then when I got out, essentially kind of bounced around a bit, but I ended up working for an advertising agency doing programming and occasionally illustration. But I started my own company and I had it for like 12, 13 years. So what that did was it gave me enough free time to just dig into sculpting, modeling, drawing. And this is sort of the outcome of that. So I've been sculpting for 15 years probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
It shows.
Thank
It's
you.
really amazing stuff. That's really quite. Yeah, I was looking at some of the stuff, like you've just got these, objects, obviously the little boat down there, what appears to be like a dead squid maybe or something that's laying there.
Yeah, it's a deep sea fish that I looked up because when it pops up from the ocean floor and he talks about how things are just rotting, I'm like, well, I want to throw like some unique deep sea fish and deep sea like bugs, essentially fish bugs.
Yeah.
And put them on there so they give it just that extra little bit of like weird feel to it.
Yeah, I love the shark down there. That is just totally great.
I don't know if you can see it in the picture, but if you look at his back, I put those. I can't remember what they're called, but they're essentially parasite fish that attach themselves. So I put them
one there.
Yeah, so I added that extra in there. I thought that would be kind of a cool feature.
Yeah, that is cool, man. Very groovy, very groovy.
And I think, you know what? I have to double check. I don't want to say this. If you can turn around a little bit, I put like an homage to. Keep going, because I had to fill up that obelisk with some stuff that wasn't in the story. Keep going.
Yeah.
I think you might not be able to see it, but it's a little homage to Goya, Kronos eating his children.
Oh, Saturn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Saturn. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right here.
Top, yeah.
Right there. I can see it.
That's my little homage. Yeah.
That is freaking great. Oh my God. That is fantastic, man. So I've dropped the link in the chat, folks. That is Fabrizio's Etsy store. He's got some other really great stuff on there.
Thank you so much.
Let's go back to the Frankenstein is really cool too.
Thank you. Yeah, this is one that I sculpted. I did the 3D print. I did the molding, casting, painting, the whole kit and caboodle for that. It's a small one, so I wanted to make something that was a little more affordable. It's not a kit, you just hang it on your wall.
Right. So it's ready to go. It's ready for hanging, in other words. Now there's a better that I love the coloring on this. God, now you can't see it again. Okay. It just keeps popping up okay. Let's see if I can do this correctly. Okay, we got that. Over here. This one. Let me see if I can.
Oh, yeah.
Copy image address and just drop it right in here. So there are various styles.
There's a few there's a few that I painted.
It's really starting to bug me. Okay.
Yeah, that is obnoxious. I didn't think it would do that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna do this and see if I can drop it in this way. It is not doing it. What the heck? Okay, I do this.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Well, then it didn't pop it up. Yeah, the one on the left. Paint job it's different from the one we were just looking at.
Yeah, I have a lot of those like bronze faux finish, and then I have some painted ones, and then I have unpainted ones too.
Very cool. That just looks outstanding.
Thank you.
And then, of course, yeah, people on Twitter, check out Fabrizio. Let's take a look here. Oops. Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, I haven't been on Twitter too long. Past couple of years. Whenever I started Horace H. Hoover, I got on Twitter. So I haven't been around that long.
Yeah, I haven't. As a matter of fact, you know what happened? I was on Twitter for a while, and then I dumped Twitter in 2020 because I just hated it. and then 2023, the beginning of 2023, I think it was. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back and see what's going on. So I just started another thing, and it's better at this point. That's all I can say is that it is better, and I'm not as incredibly frustrated as I was with it back in 2020. I just dumped it. I literally was like, this is not good. So it is better, and that is Twitter, folks. So check it out. If you're on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it, Twitex. I don't know.
Yeah, it's Twitter to me. I mean,
yeah, I know it'll always be Twitter to me as well. Let us check out. There's been a lot of activity in the chat, Fabrizio.
Awesome.
I think we have to address some questions. I see some new faces as well. So that is, oh my God. Okay. I'm just going to go. There we go. I found it. Oh, yes. Letters to the, okay, we did that. And okay, God, we everybody's saying hello, Fabrizio. That's where we left off.
Hello.
So there we go. John's long box is on. Hello. You both look nice and horrible today. Great. Fantastic. John's long box. Great to see you on in the chat, my good friend and fiend. Let's see here. Easy Comic Reader says, Fabrizio, I want to visit the great library of the sightless.
Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, fantastic cover and art, Fabrizio, from Michael Taylor.
Thanks.
Mad Links is here. Dead Language. There we go. PBR Street Gang says Brian's Titus Crow books are really good.
Yeah, okay. Brian Lumley has I think a series of 3 of the Titus Crow books. They're good. They're very good.
Okay. I'm not familiar with those. That is cool, though. It's yet whatever. What was it?
The Necroscope. Yeah.
Necroscope.
Those are the big ones. Yeah.
That's the one. His real claim to fame, I guess. Yeah. Steve says male name idea Dead X. Get out your brown shorts. Oh, God. Roy Thomas did a lot of Robert E. Howard adaptations. He did quite well. Of course, they adapted. They must have adapted at least half of his Conan stories in the Conan the Barbarian series. Easy Comic Reader says, I'm fascinated with the Horace character, looking forward to following his journey and getting more insight into his past.
Awesome.
Yes. I saw that Werewolf by Night show yesterday. I liked it, thought it was good. Yeah, I still have to see that.
I haven't seen that either.
Yeah, and the thing is that who owns that? Oh, it's Marvel Disney. And so that means that you're not going to see it, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, available on other platforms. You got to go, at least when it came out, the only way you could see that sucker was by going through the Disney Channel.
Yeah, and
I was not going to do that.
Nope.
So That was, so then I thought, well, maybe it's going to come out, for rent on Vudu or whatever. And, but it, I don't think it has. Michael Taylor, where did you see it, Michael Taylor? Maybe there's another platform it's on now. Steve says comics ripped off a lot in the day because they figured kids were the exclusive audience and they aren't litigious. Yeah, that is true. Man-Thing thoughts. Yeah, because Man-Thing, of course, makes an appearance in that Werewolf by Night movie. And he looked good. I saw some images. He looked really good. John's Longbox says, I love that story, so creepy, and that is a real book. I saw that picture.
Oh, Picture in the House, I think.
Yeah, the picture in the house. Yeah.
Yeah, the book, so that the whole story is centered around is a real book. So you can Google it. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that is really cool. Man, okay, that's now on the top priority on my reading list. I'm going to have to crack open that Lovecraft book. That's just one that gets buried.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it.
It was in my first collected book, and, it sticks with you.
That is great, man. John's Longbox says it would make a good Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Like Pickman's Model. Yeah, and they did the, I thought it was a fairly decent stab at Pickman's Model in the Night Gallery.
The Del Toro stuff. Didn't he just recently do Pickman's Model?
I think you're right. I have not seen that. I was referring to the 70s Night Gallery episode. They did Pickman's Model.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it was pretty good. Limited budget, etc. And not like Del Toro. Although I got to say, I'm still to this day. It's one of those things that for several years there was talk about Del Toro doing At the Mountains of Madness, right?
I know,
and it fell through, badly. It fell through because it was like $100 million film right off the bat, right? In order to do that thing correctly, that's pretty much your budget.
I don't know how well it would have done, to be completely honest.
Right.
I mean, you had the hardcore fans. I don't know if it would have been able to draw in a wider audience.
Well, he would have had to have made it more mainstream, which might have actually killed it. Yep. In reality, it's one of those things when you suddenly, when the studio gives you $100 million, they're not going to say yes, just do it exactly the way Lovecraft wrote it. That's going to make us $1 billion right there. But little do they know, they would probably make their money back over years because fans would go nuts over it. People would just. And there are, across the planet, there are millions of Lovecraft fans.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. There's definitely, I would put it in the millions. Because you find people all over the place. There's an artist, Tanab Gao, Japanese artist, who has done, he did a graphic novel, At the Mountains of Madness, and it's really good. And he also did The Shadow over Innsmouth and a few others. Really good artist. It's when I say, when people say manga, usually people think like all the characters have huge eyes and so. Well, no, it is manga kind of, but it's a totally different art style in my opinion. It's really good. It's a good art
check it
style.
Out.
Kind of classic. Well, here's the thing, Fabrizio. There is a group on YouTube, and I think it's called MS-21. They have taken the Tanab Gal graphic novels, and they have made motion comics out of them. And they did At the Mountains of Madness. It's like 14 parts.
Wow.
And it's really, really good. I can't recommend it highly enough. If you look up, At the Mountains of Madness animated, I think it'll just pop right up.
Yeah, I will definitely check that out.
Yeah, what these guys did is they took the Tanab Gal art, they made the motion comic, right? And there's a couple of people. Wayne June is one of them. There's a couple of narrators that are fantastic with H.P. Lovecraft. They just have the voice. They
Yeah.
have that thing, and they're on YouTube. Wayne June is one of them. There's another guy. I think his name is Conrad Feininger. And so they used Conrad Feininger's narration and fused all of these things together into At the Mountains of Madness, and it's really quite good. So the Shadow over Innsmouth is new. They're putting out chapters I think a chapter every 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
Right now, so and I think it's MS-21 is the name.
I will definitely check that out. I don't know if you've ever heard the H.P. Lovecraft historical, the ones that do the radio dramas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are really good. And they've done 2 silent films, or the one was silent. They did Call of Cthulhu, which was a silent film.
Yes. The other one was sound. That was A Whisper in the Darkness.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, highly recommended, man. But they just do top-notch stuff.
Yeah.
Very, very good stuff. Just reread The Lurking Fear last night. Great story. Yeah, The Lurking Fear is another one. It's a really great. I mean, it's hard to lose with Lovecraft. I don't know if I've ever read what I would go like, oh God, that was a bad story.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever had that experience with reading Lovecraft. Maybe not as good as something else, obviously, but bad. I don't think so.
Yeah, you're not wasting your time, even if it, like you said, it's not as good as other ones. You haven't wasted your time reading a Lovecraft story.
And Jeffrey Combs, who of course was in many of the Stuart Gordon films, Dagon. Well, he wasn't in Dagon. He was in From Beyond and
I haven't seen it.
Reanimator. That was Stuart Gordon doing his adaptations of Lovecraft and Dagon, of course. But he was in a low budget film, The Lurking Fear, which was an adaptation of Lovecraft, and I believe that's still on Tubi. We'll take a quick look once we get over to Tubi.
Yeah.
So there is, once again, folks, there is the funding link for Horace H. Hoover, Alterna Comics. Michael Taylor says, I liked Man-Thing a lot. Looked just like him. Yeah, it did. The images I've seen from that show, just spot on. Great cover is that. Yes, the Horace H.
Thank you.
Hoover covers. All 3 of them are freaking fantastic. HHS is amazing. I highly recommend it. John.
Thank you.
Lead Paint, I will definitely check it out. Yes. Again, fantastic cover and art. Of course. Fabrizio, I don't blame you for ignoring the moderns and going to the old books. Yeah. I mean, there really isn't much of a choice, folks. God. Horace H. Hoover is the greatest, most unique comic character in the past 10 years.
Thank you, sir.
Fantastic. Wow. Next to the Patriarch, of course.
That's John's upcoming comic.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's great.
Steve Harrison, love your art style. Fabrizio has a great Wally Wood feel to it. While still unique, it has an old soul about it. Yes, I get put in the mind of Herbie humor, which I love. John's Long Box again. I love the look of the comic. You are right. That is exactly how comics look. That's how they should look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, let's put it that way, folks. Otherwise we were talking about sometime in the 90s, things started going downhill. And one of the things that happened, essentially, they started, going with satin or I guess it was like semi-glossy pages, interior pages, like gloss pages.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that, man? It's It doesn't work. You know, it
No.
just, but then when all of the other stuff started happening and uh, just one by one, it's gimmick covers started coming out, variant covers. Like, you've got, that's how they sell their comics now. They
Yeah.
make 20 variant covers and they use all these artists, pay them a lot of money, make these variant covers. And typically the art inside is schlock, man. I mean, I've got a few really good examples of that where I was bamboozled myself.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, I hate saying that because I'm not supposed to say anything, bad if I'm doing my own comic. But again, that was one of the things where I open up a current modern mainstream book and I'm like, I am better than that. I know I can do a better job, I think, at
Yes.
least.
Yeah.
And in my head, again, to me, the artists are John Buscema and Rick Leonardi and like all these John Byrne, all these old guys that
Yes.
had such an understanding of anatomy and perspective and all of these things. And then I open up a new book. I'm like, you haven't even looked at an old book. You don't even know what comic books look like or
Right.
supposed to look like.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, it's really lame nowadays. Benjamin Soto is here. Hello, Benjamin. Good to see you.
Hey, Ben,
Good
thanks.
book from a good guy.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Steve says, Mr. Monster. I love Mr. Monster. Michael Gilbert. He's just a really great artist. Dig the hell out. And of course, once again, 80s indie comics right there. Classic example. Mr. Monster may have been the last time I was this impressed by a character. Holy Toledo.
Man.
Okay, you guys his head is about to enlarge 5 times the size, folks. But no, it's, I can see that. That's a valid statement.
Thank you so much.
Really good stuff. Fantastic Smokeman Rises splash page. You guys, that's how you open a comic book. You want people to get sucked into a comic book, do a splash page like that.
Yeah, and your book on splash pages, it's funny because I spend an inordinate amount of time studying old splash pages, and there is like this voodoo of a splash page. I don't know what it is, what mixture it is. So after you're like studying of it, what are the elements that you think make a great splash page?
Well, it doesn't have to be the full page. It could be a half page, but no less. That's one thing.
Okay.
If you got a page, it's got to be half of the page, at least. And a full page is nice, right? But it's got to have something that is in action, that's about to happen, that, it's not just 2 people walking down the street. I see that a lot where they're just like, it's 2 people are walking down the street and the guy's like, but John, that house, it can't be haunted or whatever, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't really, I see that a lot. I've seen that a lot, even in the past. I've seen those things happen. And unless there's something very atmospheric and foreboding about that type of scene, it's just flat, and I'm going to skip to the next story. Like, when we're talking about anthologies in comic books, horror comics, and so forth, I'm going to the next one. And hopefully that splash page is the one that's going to suck me in. I'm going to start reading.
Yeah.
There's got to be a level of a dynamic quality about it that regardless of what it is, it could be horror, science fiction, or even superhero. It has to be something where you look at it, you're immediately drawn to it. There's something that gets you into it. And you're like, whoa, this is going to be a great story type of thing. That the setup is there, and that's the thing with for instance, with issue number 1 and the first splash page, the Smokeman Rises, where that's it. It just starts, it begins with a great splash page. You're sucked in all the way through to the end.
I can't remember if it was Hitchcock or somebody talked about, having a bomb is drama or something, but suspense is, the bomb under the desk without the person knowing,
Yeah, exactly. But you know,
Yeah, that
right?
that kind of thing. And I think in the future my splash pages will kind of lean into that, but yeah, I just sit and study old splash pages because to me I love the idea of taking an old comic and just blowing it up and just putting it on your wall, because to me it's as good and engaging as anything you're ever going to see. It's like the pinnacle of that sort of style.
Right, right. Here, let me just show you one thing here. This will be. Let's see. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to go solo for a second. This is kind of what I was, with the splash book. Okay, here it is. In Splash of Horror, I'm going to go to some black and white stuff, which some of these are just, I to this day, I am stunned at how good some of these are. But this is a good example. You have like something that's, to me, that's obvious, that's going to suck you right in. Like, for instance, this unknown artist voodoo dolls, right?
Yeah.
This is from a pre-code. You look at that and you're just like, what? What is going on, man? What
Yeah.
is this story about? Right? Well, it's about voodoo dolls. And there's a guy getting stabbed through the heart, and it's just, it's grotesque. It's got a certain quality about it that, we're talking 1953 or so, that is just, I don't know, it still resonates today.
Yep.
Okay, so you got that, and that's kind of, to me, that's kind of like an obvious splash page that works. Then you have something like this, The Gossips. Now check out that splash page. Okay, this is from an issue of Mr. Mystery. And so the splash page is a woman. She's standing on a bridge and she's ready to jump in the water and kill herself. That's the whole thing. And it is incredibly atmospheric. And
Yep.
the story, The Gossips, is just, it's one of the best pre-code stories I've ever read. It's really hardcore. So that works. To me, I see that and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Oh my God, this woman's, she's contemplating jumping in the water and taking her own life. Why? What has driven her to, to this thing? And it's not, you look at it, there's nothing really dynamic about it, but there is a ton of atmosphere. There's something there, and so it can be a variety of things, but once again, it's just something that when you look at it, it may take you a minute or two to kind of suck you in, as opposed to that voodoo dolls one where you're just like, whoa, all right, this is gonna be a hell of a thing. You may have to look at it for a bit, and then you realize, wow, this is going to be a great story. I'm reading it. I'm reading it now. That's kind of the way I look at it. It is in the eye of the beholder to a certain degree, but man, there are some splash pages, even going back to the pre-code horror stuff, where they're just so flat that you're like, oh God, this is not going to be good. This is, it's just going to be it's just going to be kind of like, especially with pre-code, there's got to be some kind of element either up front that's shocking, that shocks the eyes, or that promises a shocking result. One of the two. And when you run across a splash page that just has like a really dorky looking vampire or something that's like flying, and it just looks like a really bad bat creature or something, and it's not gonna do it. It's not gonna work. So there you go. It's either there's a dynamic to it or it's just flat. Let's see, where are we here? Did we see this? Yes. Okay, we did that. Wally Wood, right? Got it. Oh, here we go. Fantastic cover and art on number 2. Yes.
Thank you.
Issue number 2. Fantastic. I've rated the alternate back issue bins for almost a year now. Almost a short box full at this point. Excellent. Easy comic reader. Holy Toledo, man. I think I've got, well, I may have about 20 issues, which is pretty good, as far as alternate comics go. But I don't have a short. I'm not close to a short box yet. Fabrizio, your 2 books are as good, if not better, than anything Marvel and DC is producing. Yes, that's the reality. And a lot. Look, I've said it. A lot of people know it. Michael Taylor just said it. People in the chat know it. That is just a fact. And so, folks, alternate comics, Horace H. Hoover, other titles from them. Of course, you can get the first 9 issues of Wolf and Batsy. You can't lose. It's just great stuff. Hoover, greatest superhero around. He's going to clean up your town. The PBR on the scene there. And there is the link for the funding page once again, folks. Oh, yeah, I'm really on board for that comic. Yes. It is going to be a good one. Excellent trailer. Yeah, top-notch trailer, Fabrizio. That one. That's what you need to really catch, to, draw people in there, just cruising YouTube. And that's the thing, man. You watch a video like that, it's really well done. Very, it's eye-popping. The colors are just right out there. Really good. There's the YouTube channel. That's Fabrizio's YouTube channel, folks. Head on over there. Subscribe if you haven't already. Just subbed.
Thank you.
Fabrizio.
Thank you.
Excellent. And there's his Etsy store. Gotham City says, wow. And that's something coming from Gotham City Comics, Fabrizio, because if you saw any part of my show on Friday night, it was Gotham City Comics store live. You have got to see this guy's store to believe it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I don't say this lightly, but Gotham City Comics, the stuff he's got on display in his store will blow your mind. It will blow your freaking mind.
I think I might follow them on Twitter.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, it's great. Fantastic shop. And I'm going to be doing some clips from his shop for this week to put up on my channel. But he's also carrying Splash of Horror, which is fantastic. I cannot believe it, man. Got some issues up. He's got issues up on the shelf of Splash of Horror. Gotham City also says, I need someone to build and paint our model kits. Wow. Okay. Steve says, nice sculpt, Fabrizio. I was into garage kits and sculpting back in the 90s. Met Sean Nagel, Randy Bowen. Oh, Randy Bowen. Now his name is familiar to me. I think he did a sculpture of Mr. Monster, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken. Beautiful sculpt, lead paint. It is. As that Dagon sculptures. And the Frankenstein monster is really quite good. Detailed base is fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, whenever I'm doing those models, I'm like, I might as well cram as much stuff as I can that help with the story. So even if somebody doesn't know Dagon, they can kind of see the sculpt and kind of work their way around it and see all of these little visual cues.
Yeah. The shark is great. Yes, I second that. I like the bronze paint up. Yeah. That is totally cool as well. There's the Twitter, folks. Fabrizio's Twitter. I see you put a little different spin on Frankenstein. Looks fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Hey Fabrizio, what was your favorite comic book growing up? Mine was Micronauts. How how about your favorite comic then and favorite comic now?
Man, then I mean I was a Marvel guy just because I didn't have access to DC for the most part. I had a newsstand, so whatever they bought or whatever they had in stock is what I bought. Um, I mean, just the main ones growing up were Daredevil and probably Daredevil. I would have to Spider Man probably. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
I mean the main ones growing up, and then obviously later on I got into like Hellboy and Sin City and that kind of stuff. The Goon.
Oh yeah, Powell, Eric Powell.
So it kind of I run the gamut. I like the From Hell, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, The Fountain by Kent Williams. He did a graphic novel before the movie came out, which is one of my favorite
Okay.
books.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that. That was the one with Hugh Jackman, right? The movie.
yeah.
Yes.
And Kent Williams, he did a run on Havoc and Wolverine, like a painted, like really,
Whoa.
yeah, very cool, different take on Wolverine.
Interesting. Steve says Spider X is a great sculptor of Lovecraftian models.
Oh,
Okay.
yes,
You've heard of him?
I think so. If I'm familiar with that name.
PBR says the animated HP Lovecraft animated comics is it's MSA Matthew.
Okay.
That's what it is. There used to be a number. It used to be like MSA 21 or something. But yeah, really good stuff. HP Lovecraft Historical Society is a way cool outfit. Yes.
Yeah.
John's Long Box. Michael Gilbert will be on my channel Friday. Holy
Wow.
Toledo. Okay. I'm going to have to check out your channel, John's Long Box. Well, of course, I've got my show at 8, so that there may be a scheduling problem. Kevin Hellon is here. Hello, Kevin. How you doing, man? Great to see you. Drop a link. Indeed.
Oh, I'm not on screen. Do you want to pop me back on? I feel kind of.
Oh shit! Sorry.
So I just realized that myself. I was about to wave. Like I'm like.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'll get that channel, John's Long Box. I will find that. Steve says an example of a great cover: Hulk around the corner from approaching Fantastic Four. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, that kind of like a little bit of mystery, suspense.
Yes. Friday, I'll have both laptops up. Oh my God. Oh, it's going to be dueling shows. Gotham has a great shop. Yeah, they do. Gotham City, man, just amazing stuff. Last page of Horace Hoover issue 2. Now I know where the old book smell comes from. There you go. Goon is great. Yes.
He's a great
Goon
artist.
is freaking great. Okay, now let me go over here real quick and see if I can find John's Long Box. Okay. There he is. Okay. Oops. Okay, what the heck? Okay, there we go. Got it. Just dropped that link in the chat, folks. That's John's Long Box right there.
Yeah,
Check
great
him
channel,
out. I
great
just
guy.
subscribed. Excellent. Okay. 8 p.m. Well, I am too. Well, forget about it, John's Long Box. Good Lord, man. We have dueling channels.
I think John's Long Box was one of the first or second like interviews I had. And it's been nice. Again, before Twitter, I didn't know, or YouTube, I didn't really know modern sort of comics, indie, like the people, and ever since I got on it, I've met a lot of great, cool people. It's been such a change because, before then you have the Marvel and DC that basically hate their fans and like, oh, I guess that's the only sort of alternative there is, right? It's
Pretty much. Yeah. Good God, man. John says the Goon is also one of my favorites. Yeah, he's definitely, it's incredible art. Eric Powell.
yeah.
And some of his other characters too. They're really quite amazing.
I think I saw him. I don't know if it was an issue, but I saw him doing an image of the Spirit, and it looked so good.
Oh, man, I don't know if I've seen that.
I mean, Will Eisner's probably one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
But to see Powell do it and do it well was pretty cool.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I will seek that out.
Yeah, I if it's an issue, I would be really surprised. But even that image I saw, he really did it well.
Fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Well, it is just after 2:00, which means it's Tubi time. Where we go over to Tubi and check out some new flicks on there. You're welcome to stay with us, Fabrizio, or if you have places to go, that's totally understandable.
I'll probably get going. I got some pages to do.
Oh, okay.
But thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
It was absolutely fantastic, man. It was great talking to you about Horace Hoover, Lovecraft, and everything,
and
man.
All that stuff.
Look, maybe when do you expect issue 4 to kind of, do you think it'll be this year or next year?
Definitely this year. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
definitely.
Great.
Yeah. Issue 4 will be this year.
Cool. Before that comes out, maybe we'll have you on again.
Yeah, that would be great.
About issue number 4,
That'd be awesome. Thanks everybody in the chat. I really appreciate, everybody checking out Horace Hoover and listening to me blabble.
Blabble. All right, man.
All right. Have a good one.
Take care, man.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, guys. Well, that was Fabrizio Aiello, Horace H. Hoover. Check it out. That's what I'm saying right now, my good fiends. Okay. Well, it's that time, folks. It's the time you've all been waiting for. It's redemption. It's Tubi redemption time. That's what I'm saying right now. Because after Friday's massacre, the Tubi massacre, that I like to call it, we're kind of scaling it back, folks. We're getting these are what I would like to say call films, series, animated shows that are suitable for the whole family. Okay, no cannibal films in this lineup, but there's some great stuff. Wait until you see this. If you came in at the beginning, you know what I mean. I showed a few trailers. There's some fantastic stuff, and of course, we're starting off with the. That was another one. I don't know if Lidsville is on Tubi yet, but they do have HR Puffin stuff. Jimmy, a boy with a talking flute, tries to make his way back home after he becomes stranded on a strange island where almost everything is alive. That's the horror version. If it was done as a horror film, there probably somebody's going to do it too. They do it. They did it to freaking, who were the Banana Splits with that lame freaking movie. I wouldn't be surprised, folks. But that's on Tubi. Here's a little more modern stuff. Now, this is Jim Henson's Jack and the Beanstalk, the real story, which I thought was pretty good. Matthew Modine is in this from 2001. I liked it. It was entertaining enough and so forth. And they also have Jim Henson's The Storyteller from 1987, a series starring John Hurt and A variety of actors, but John Hurt is one of the biggies in this. And it's been that long. I mean, I saw this in the late 80s. So this will be like going back to the late 80s. An old storyteller regales his sarcastic dog with folk tales adapted from Celtic, Russian, and German myths performed by remote-controlled puppets. There you go, John Hurt, Brian Henson. This one, my God. I have not seen the entire film yet. I've only seen parts of it. But wow. Apparently, this film was lost for a while. Lou Boonin did this, Alice in Wonderland, 1949. It's live action and puppet animation merged in this theatrical version of Lewis Carroll's 1865 classic about a girl's adventures in a fantastical world. All I have to say is check this short clip. This is like a minute and a half. Check out the animation in this clip.
Explain yourself.
I can't explain myself, sir, because I'm not myself, you see.
What have you been doing here? May it please your majesty? Oh, I see. Off with their heads! Can you play croquet?
Yes. Yes, your majesty.
Then play!
Visit thegrindhouse.net, the official apprehensive film store.
There you go, folks. Can you believe that animation from 1949? This thing is freaking, it looks completely awesome. As I said, I've just seen a few scenes from it. And I have yet to see the entire film, but it's on my list, and it's going to be seen very shortly by Horror Mike. Alice in Wonderland, 1949. Yeah, I believe they've also just added this too, Woody Woodpecker and Friends, the late 1950s, including Felix the Cat. So it's yet another series. Now this is it's a 90-minute film, so it's a compilation movie of various stories, from Woody Woodpecker and Felix the Cat and so forth. It looks really great, Woody Woodpecker, what can be said? But man, animation-wise, hard to beat the 1942 Superman. This is absolutely astounding. Max Fleischer, of course, directed by Dave Fleischer. And, of course, let's see here. Yeah, Joan Alexander, Jackson Beck. I guess Jackson Beck does the voice to Superman. And Joan Alexander is Lois Lane. Follows the straight line from the Superman animated series to Saturday morning TV action cartoons, video games, the anime genre, and much more. So it's got the original Superman, and I guess it's kind of like a quasi-documentary That's what it sounds like. But in any case, I've got a nice little intro to it.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings at a single bound, this amazing stranger from the planet Krypton, the Man of Steel, Superman. Empowered with X-ray vision, possessing remarkable physical strength, Superman fights a never-ending battle for truth and justice, disguised as a mild-mannered newspaper reporter, Clark Kent.
Fantastic. That animation just always boggled my mind. The quality of that animation is hard to beat. Such a great series. And I believe the Superman series itself, this is just a movie, as I say, it strikes me as being kind of a quasi documentary that goes through time, you know, showing the animated cartoons and so forth. But I believe they have the series, the Fleischer series is also on Tubi, which is fantastic. Felix the Cat from 1958. Yes. Good Lord, laugh along with the charming cartoon cat who, thanks in part to his magic bag, always manages to stay one step ahead of his wicked professor foe. Great stuff here, folks. Good Lord. In glorious black and white, as you can see. It is the one season from 1958. Absolutely just Felix the Cat. What can be said? Great stuff. Now, I added this, Doctari. Yes, 1966. They just added this on Tubi, folks. It's the series. I definitely remember at least part of this in the late 60s as a wee child watching Doctari and the chimp. I remember the chimp. Of course, Marshall Thompson in the lead role here. A veterinarian and his daughter fend off poachers, diamond smugglers, and big game hunters while running an animal study center in East Africa. Doctari. Fantastic. New on Tubi, folks. And there you go. That concludes our look at Tubi for today. Now, there is a time issue. There's definitely next Friday's show for 8 o'clock. That is an absolute, it's a happening thing. Sunday's not going to happen because I've got about 2 hours left right now on the StreamYard time, quotient. So 2 hours, of course, for the next show for Friday. Then, I will return the following Friday, of course, with another show. And by that time, I will have replenished my hours for StreamYard so I can do more Sunday shows, my good fiends. Let's get back to the chat before we say farewell on this Sunday nooner. Okay, I think we said we were here. I've been hearing a lot of good things about the Goon for a long time. It's quite a series, Michael Taylor. You can find back issues on eBay and elsewhere, and you can pick them up relatively cheaply depending on the issue. That's the thing. Like the Dark Horse Comics series is pretty reasonable. Great to see fantastic talent. Yeah, absolutely. Great to have Fabrizio. And remember, folks, very soon we will be having Brian Baugh on Wolf and Batsy as he reignites the Wolf and Batsy flame. The comics are coming back, folks. That is going to be great. That should be coming up in the next few weeks. So look forward to that one. Friday. Yeah, Friday's Tubi was a mess binge. Today is a delightful wine tasting. Yes. I had to do something. It was kind of like an atonement, Easy Comic Reader, because Friday was just off the rails. I mean, whew. And it's all on Tubi, folks. That's the stuff pops up on Tubi, and I show it to you. You know, you be the judge. You can watch it or not, but they're like pushing the limits. They're pushing the envelope. I think maybe they pushed the envelope on the ground and they stomped on it. I think that's pretty much what happened with that. Love me some Johnny Quest. Yes, PBR. I concur, my good man. It's just so great. I got to watch me some Johnny Quest. Yeah, it is fantastic. It's one of those shows that really makes you excited about the future. Like when you were a kid and you watched Johnny Quest, you're just like, oh, man, these scientists are creating all these great things. And they got these, you know, their foes that are also creating these monsters and so forth. It's just great stuff, man. You know, really well done series. Gotta love Gumby. Yes, I love Gumby too. A lot. Gumby versus Mr. Bill. Oh my God. Nothing like watching Gumby while tripping. Oh my God. That is just classic. Oh no. Yeah, Mr. Bill. God, did you guys ever see Mad TV? They also did their incredible claymation stuff. They had like Mr. Peanut gone bad. They did all kinds of amazing claymation stuff on Mad TV in the early days. This was like the first 3 seasons. And I remember Mr. Peanut. I was particularly insane. But they did a lot of other stuff too. Here comes Mr. Bill's dad. Dog. Yes. Steve says, Popeye was originally part of Thimble Theater, but took off in popularity from the cast. The characters stayed with him, though. Wimpy, Olive Oil, etc. Mike was just going to say Popeye was originally on the Betty Boop cartoon. Yes. Puffin stuff kind of freaks me out. Yeah. Like, I think now it does. And Lidsville. You know, I watched those as a kid. I loved that stuff as a kid. You know. It was all like, was it Sid and Marty Krofft? All that stuff, and like Sigmund and the Sea Monster. I remember that one. Sigmund, Steve Harrison. It's like a meow, meow, some kind of a mental wave there. Yes, Sigmund and the Sea Monster. HR Puffin stuff. Good God, man, love it. Based on the actual Tough as Nails Sailor 2. Betty Boop was probably my first crush. Yes. She was back there, man. Have you seen Jim Henson's Farscape? Yes. Yeah, that strange. Yeah, it was pretty much like that live action. And that is also that live action series, which is also on Tubi, folks. Farscape. Steve Harrison says, in one of the storytellers, I was surprised when an alien jumped from his chest. From John Hurt's chest, indeed. Steve says, I have a great collection of Betty Boop keychains. Most great PVC figures, mostly toting modern rifles, a Chinese import. I'm jealous, Steve. That's hilarious. Probably on eBay. I would say yes. Alice in Wonderland cover, yes. Gotta love Woody Woodpecker and Felix the Cat. Yeah, he's just so great, man. And it's all a ton of it on Tubi now. They have just gone nuts with the animated shows, and primarily like 60s and 70s TV shows. They've got a ton of stuff that I didn't even show you on here. The Bugaloos. Remember that show? That's on Tubi now. That cartoon is when Superman wasn't at full strength, struggled with his strength a little. The Fleischer cartoon. The Felix cartoons are as old as Boop, but the TV release was in the 50s, right? Yes. Yeah, because he was a 1930s cartoon character originally. Great show. Enjoyed Fabrizio. Mike and Chad, have a great weekend. You too, Michael Taylor. Glad to see you here, my good man. Mad Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Yes, that was another Mad TV send-up. Mad TV's Jim Carrey, the Barbarian Bitch, was the best. Steve, that would be an interesting fight. Horror Mike, thought that was that witchy poo was hot. Eric Boyd is here. Hello, Eric. How are you doing? Good to see you, Matt. Yeah, witchy poo. That was freaking HR Puffin stuff. Adam Carolla interviewed Sid Croft. One has passed on recently on YouTube. Easy comic reader. I remember going to Lidsville, taking a struff and getting buckalooed. Yes. Oh my God. All those shows happened at once, right? Good God. I've missed your shows of late. Damn it, Bobby. Well, at least you're here today, Eric. The Astonishing Eric and Boyd and the Mighty Max. All right, folks. All right, well, that concludes today's show, the Sunday Nooner. Definitely next Friday, 8 p.m., folks. You're not going to want to miss it. I've got some great stuff lined up that maybe you've never seen before, or perhaps you have, but it's kind of obscure. Let me just put it this way. Robert Englund, Vincent Price, Frank Gorshin. I'm just going to put that out there. Robert Englund, Vincent Price, Frank Gorshin. That's what I'm talking about right now. That's coming up this coming Friday. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a hell of a show at 8 p.m. Take care, everyone. Thanks for bringing Fabrizio on. You're very welcome. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the show. Yeah, great stuff. You know, Horace H. Hoover. It is just freaking awesome. All right, guys. Well, it was a delight doing the show today with Fabrizio. I hope you guys totally dug it. And now I'm going to lead you out on, of course, the one and only. The one. It's got to be one or the other, but it's going to be this one.